Mimosas with Michael. Mimosas with Michael. Mimosas with Michael. Yay!
Hey everybody, it's Michael Colomb with Mimosas with Michael. Welcome back for another exciting episode. This week I have my new friend, Isaac Thorne. Right? Isaac, are you?
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you and I have been friends, social media friends for a minute, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to have you on the show for several reasons. One, you like horror, so that's already a good reason to be on the show. But two, you have a book that I feel like came out recently, so I
It
was
came
excited.
out in 2019. In
But I just bought
2019, The Gordon Place.
the Gordon Plays. And I just
Yes,
bought mine recently, and I've been reading it, and I'm enjoying it. So you want
thank
to
you.
tell us a little bit about it, like where it came from, how it came about, and what made you decide to publish this book?
Yeah, absolutely. The Gordon Place is my first novel. It's not the first time I've attempted a novel. I have a few in various desk drawers around my house, but
Yeah.
The Gordon Place is the first one I've published, and it's about a small town, freshly elected constable who basically he gets trapped in his abandoned childhood home and is forced to confront his family's history, specifically in the form of his dead father. There's a lot of childhood trauma he suffered at the hands of his father, and he's also struggled to overcome his father's um, political leanings. I guess is the way you would put that. His father's horrible racism,
Oh, it's very apropos right now, especially with.
being trapped there.
Say what I'm saying.
I'm I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying it feels very apropos because like we're heading into the holidays, but then it's also with whole what we're just doing so much with like Black Lives Matter and everything. So this feels very apropos and important, very important right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing I wanted to hit with the novel was that generational racism. I've always
Mhm.
believed that hate is something you learn, it's not something you're born with. And in my area of the country in particular, it's something that is passed down from fathers to sons, from mothers to daughters,
Yeah.
and has been carried forward throughout the history of this country and the history of the South, and really shouldn't be. There's no reason for that hate to exist. So I kind of wanted to explore that theme, how it gets ingrained in your psyche, and certain things that you grow up believing, especially in this area, turn out not to be reality.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very brave of you to be able to tackle something. And it's crazy that in 2019, 2020, it's still something that we're having to deal with and write about. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm really excited for
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you very much. It was quite a journey for me. It actually it started with that I don't know how far in the book you've gotten, but it began for a long time as just that first chapter of
Okay.
Graham Gordon, the protagonist, getting kind of accidentally falling into this role as constable, and then getting trapped in his the basement of his childhood home, and that's a scene that I had in my head for a long time, but I didn't know where to go with it. So I wrote that first chapter years ago, and it was only in 2018 that the entire story started to come together around the theme of generational racism, and took shape from there. So it's been rattling around in my head for a long time, and finally came out through the fingertips, you know.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because when I was younger and I was writing, I always wanted to be a novelist. And so when I was a kid, I had this idea of like I would just write novels that changed the world. And then as I got older, and I was writing, but I did a lot of short stories, and I was in the process of, I've started a few novels, but somehow I fell into more filmmaking and script writing. So, but I know what you're saying. It's like you always have these ideas, and you're like, how do I expand them? And sometimes, I mean, I had a play produced in 2011, and it took me about 3 or 4 years from that point. I wanted to turn it into a movie, and it's like, it was interesting because it's such a different concept. So, I had to sit and wait and sit on it and let it percolate in my head until I found the sort of road it needed to go down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that. I absolutely get that. I mean, it's really, I've had a couple of short stories over the years that have sort of come out fully formed. The majority of my stuff, it's an idea, in the back of my head and in the back of my mind, and over time it'll finally develop. Sometimes it doesn't even develop until I actually sit down and start punching the keys. With the Gordon place, I really didn't know how it was going to eventually turn out. The characters sort of grabbed the story and ran with it.
Characters do that sometimes.
Developed. Yeah, absolutely.
So so it took you about a year, a little over a year to write this then?
Yeah, I would. Well, like I said, the first chapter was written for a long time. I started the rest of it with a sort of a nightly sit down, probably around the middle of 2018, summer of 2018, and then released it in the spring of 2019. So almost a year.
Yeah, that's actually really good. You must have been totally focused. I just know when I write. I mean, when I was trying to write novels, it took forever. But I don't know. I think it's just as we get older, we write a lot. I mean, it's the same thing with features. I'll have a short and I'll try to adapt it, and it's like as long as I have an idea and I know what I want, it could take a few weeks, a couple of months. But novels are so in depth because you know, like with movies, we eventually make it, so that's the form. But with novels, is you really have to encompass your readers into this world. So you have to create like all the senses when you write. So I can see what I think a year is really good.
There's a lot of. Well, thank you, and it was a nightly thing. I mean, I tried. I set a goal of 2,000 to 2,500 words per night.
Oh, wow.
And once you get the first draft done, that's not the end. There's the going back and rewriting. And I added chapters and I took chapters out, and there were whole characters that were kindled in there that never went anywhere and were eventually extracted. So yeah, it's a pretty intense process once you get involved in it.
How many rewrites did you do? Do you remember?
I did. The first rewrite after the first draft, I put it away for a couple of weeks after the first draft and went back and started my first rewrite. That took a while. I don't remember how long exactly I on my first rewrite. Each time I went through it, it got a little bit faster. Because there was less to change. So I think all told, I probably went through the manuscript twice more after that first rewrite. So 3 rewriting phases total.
I don't know if that's normal or not, but that doesn't seem like a lot, I think, for a novel. So that's good.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I like I said, it was it's the first. I have plenty of first drafts stored,
Oh
in
yeah,
various
yeah,
places around the house, but that's the first one I've gone back and done that whole rewrite process with. And then of course it goes, once you're done with that, it goes to beta readers and editors,
yeah.
and there are even further changes. So it takes a lot to bring a 350 page novel to life in its final
Yeah.
form.
No, yeah. Like again, I'm very proud of you for doing that. Um, I got the ebook though because I love hard books, but recently because I travel so much, I just read everything on I have a tablet, so it's much easier for me to just it's there when I need it, I'm ready to go. But I did see that it was quite lengthy, so um, I'm excited because I haven't read a novel in a while. I read scripts so often now, so um, this is fun. So I'm really excited about that, man. That's really exciting. So congratulations on finishing your project.
Thank you very much. And I've already started on my next one, which
Ooh,
is set in the same town but a different time period. It's set in the 50s, and different theme, different subjects there. But so yeah, that's what I'm doing now, trying to carve out time every night
mhm.
to to work on that one. I'm hoping to have it in some sort of completed form by the middle of next year. So
Well, it's kind of I mean I hate to say this, but like in this particular way, but it's good that like we have a lot of downtime right now because of the pandemic. That it's kind of like, well, I might as well write. I have the time in a sense. I know it's there's a lot of other
right.
things going on because I know a lot of people's mental states uh, can be affected. But I'm glad that you're able to find a way to be creative and do something during this time.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. I mean, when the pandemic started, and suddenly people like me who were able to were working remotely.
Hmm.
I honestly did think, well, this is going to be easier for me to carve out time to work on this next project. And yet there are days, I wake up and I look at the Twitter trends, or I turn on the news, or I get an email from one of the newspapers the digital newspapers I subscribe
Yeah,
to, and there's just something in there that takes the wind out of your sails. And it's not that you're necessarily directly personally affected by whatever is going on in the world,
yeah,
but there's so much going on with the pandemic and the election uh,
yeah,
and the civil unrest, or whatever you want to call protests and everything. There's
yeah.
just so much going on that it can overwhelm your brain, and you find yourself ruminating about that and not able to shut it out in order to get the words on the page. And there really is a shutout that needs to happen when you're sitting down to write, or when I'm sitting down to write anyway. Stephen King once described it as falling into this world you're creating,
Yeah.
and everything around you just kind of vanishes. And it's more difficult to get into that mindset when all these world distractions, or real world distractions, are happening.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I think people who don't write, and I used to deal with this a lot when I was writing, but I don't think people realize that the sort of like personal commitment it takes. It's almost like people, when people are so committed to going to the gym and it's such a focus. It's the same with us. It's like not only do you have to find the time to literally sit down and write, but it's like you have to be able to turn off those outside distractions because you have to really just focus, like yeah, like just lose yourself in this whole world and like realize like you know I now I'm with this guy who's trapped in his parents garage, his basement. How's he going to get out? And I don't think people realize the sort of like mental commitment it takes to do something like
You're absolutely right. I think the gym analogy is a perfect one, because even if you manage to get up and get out of bed, and and find it within you to drive to the gym, there's still the mental energy you need to actually get on that treadmill or pick up those weights or whatever it is you're going to do. It's not just having the physical wherewithal to do that. You actually have to be in the mindset.
Yeah, and there's so many outside distractions, like, the news, or like, if you have a significant other, or or if your family's calling, it's like you just like, and then they get mad because you're like, why aren't you answering my phone calls? You're just sitting at your desk, and you're like, I mean, yes, I'm sitting at my desk, but you don't understand that, like, I just have to just shut you out and just focus. So I've learned that from when I talk to people. They're like, oh, I didn't realize that, like, it took so much, and you're like, yeah, but actors do the same thing when I'm on a set. It's like they don't bring their phone to set as much because they're trying to stay focused on, like, their lines that they memorize, their blocking, where the camera's at. So it's the same thing for us. It's like that's why they make, like, I have the Remarkable tablet, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but what's so great about this particular tablet is it's a tablet where it's just meant to be like a digital pad. So there's no other apps to distract you. It's just you can sit down and write by hand and stuff. So I like stuff like that because I'm so easily distracted by Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat. I mean, if it's a social media thing, it's on my phone. My phone goes off constantly. So it's really easy to be distracted today in 2020.
Yeah, the social media component adds a whole other level to it, especially if you access it on your phone and you don't turn off the notifications for it, or even if you've got the sound notifications off and the phone's sitting beside you and you see the display light up, your eyes are automatically drawn to that. So I have to silence mine and turn it over.
Yeah, and I have a smartwatch. Yeah, well, I mean, I like it because I do work from home, so I can't miss important things. But, like, I can tell my watch, like, these are the only things I need to be notified for. So, like, I can turn off the social medias and just put, like, if it's just an email that's important, or a phone call, or a text. So that's nice. So that way I can still work and not miss important things. But you have all of those distractions, but you're also coupled with the fact that, like, we are in the middle of a pandemic. There is a lot of things going on. The news is just not that exciting right now. I guess maybe except for the fact that we might have a vaccine hopefully in the near future. But overall, not that exciting. A lot of things that are hard to watch that can really hurt your soul.
Yeah, and it's not only just that it's bad news. It's bad news that's like it's like a lava flow. It's slow and dragging on. It's and you see what looks like this disaster oncoming, and there's nothing you can really do about it but watch it.
And then you watch it, it's sort of like that morbid curiosity of, like, a train wreck. You're like, I shouldn't be watching this, but I'm also can't be pulled away. So
absolutely,
not crazy, but I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you're able to sit down and start on your second novel, and get it out there. I'm excited. Maybe it'd be great when you're done. We can have you back on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'd appreciate that.
So, is horror, like, your favorite genre? Because I know you a lot through all the horror stuff, but I don't really know, like, if there's other things that you're interested in.
Horror is my main genre. It's the one that's been with me ever since I was a little kid and saw the Universal monsters on television late at night. I've always been fascinated by the monsters, and as I got older, the slashers came in, Michael Myers and all that, which I was really too young to watch when I first saw it. And that seems to be a common theme among horror fans. But if I have a secondary... No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just listening.
Oh, okay.
I'm just intrigued by
if I had a secondary genre, it would be sci-fi and fantasy. And horror and sci-fi and fantasy often go hand in hand, Yeah, they really. My favorite issue of Mad Magazine ever was the horror and sci-fi summer special in, like, I think 1983. I still have that somewhere.
I remember Mad Magazine because I remember at the Vire final page you could fold it in like thirds and it created a different picture, which I thought was really a cool concept.
Yes, the fold-in.
Yeah.
Fold-in.
I mean, I couldn't begin to because I don't draw, so I couldn't even imagine how somebody would even do that. And they did every issue is so interesting.
I actually, when I was very young, and had a minor comic book collection along with Mad magazines, I actually thought I might want to get into that. And, I tried to draw cartoons, but I was never particularly good at it. So started writing instead.
Writing's my forte too. That's one thing. I mean, I did a lot of acting and singing in theater and stuff, but really writing was my one passion, And so I understand with you on that one. That's why I wanted to commend you on writing this novel, because I know as a fellow writer how difficult it is. I mean, I've never done a novel because I was trying to be a novelist, and then I ended up going into filmmaking and writing scripts. So finishing a novel to me is like a massive undertaking. I think that's a complete lie. I actually did write one little, probably like 100-page novel when I was probably a teenager, like in high school or like early college, but I never did anything.
Awesome.
With it. I have to find that.
Well, I was going to say, if you still have it, you should go back to it, because a lot of times, I mean, I'll find earlier stuff that I did and it sparks something, and you may start in on it again. You never know.
I think it was called Terror in the Sky. It was about a plane crash. That's so random. I haven't thought about that in years until right now. See, that's why I do the podcast, because it makes me think of all these things I forgot about in my life.
Absolutely, you should go dig it up.
So I want to say, you live in the South. I think you live in Tennessee, right? Because we're part of the Tennessee Horror News Network.
Yes, that is correct. I live in southern Middle Tennessee.
Nice. I don't know if you know my writing partner Brantley. I think you know him as well. I think he's from that area.
I did not know he's from this area, but I know him from social media. And in fact, I believe it was one of your short films that you two worked on together that connected us. I'm trying to think of the name of it right now. Was it Love Me Not?
It might have been Love Me Not. Well, our first one was Soundbite, and then it was Stock. So it might have been Love Me Not. I don't,
I remember Soundbite.
Yeah, it might have been Soundbite, because that was the first one we did with us together for Horror House. But then, but I already actually knew of you guys because a few years ago I had submitted a short film that I wrote. It was the script, not the movie. It was a script into this festival called Horror in the Hills Film Festival.
Oh yeah.
And it ended up winning first place. And if I remember correctly, I got in touch with Tennessee Horror News Network because they did a podcast, and I was a guest on their podcast talking about the script. And then because I do horror so much, we just kept in touch. And so then when we did Soundbite, he was from the South. Brantley's technically from Missouri, but his husband's from Tennessee, and they met when he lived down there. And so,
gotcha.
Yeah, and so I connected them because I was like, "These are your people, Brantley." I go, "You were down there." I go, "I bet they would love to know that, there's another horror filmmaker that's from there." So that's how I think we all got.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But then,
it's strange how the social media web is woven,
Especially when it comes to something so genre specific as like horror, because there's a lot of loyalty, I think, amongst the fans and the people who enjoy the genre.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and that's one of the things I really appreciate about horror Twitter or the fans on Facebook and Instagram is they're all connected by this experience, this love for this genre that not everybody understands, and I think it makes horror fans a friendlier group of people. We all get that we're weirdos,
Yeah, I always tell people that when I go to these.
So we're.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we're willing to forgive each other's, not only forgive but embrace each other's weirdness because of it.
I actually like to tell people that the one thing I love about people in horror is we're also well adjusted, because like we just watch horror, and so like we get a lot of our frustrations and fears and things by watching horror movies, and then we sort of feel it's kind of cathartic, I guess, because
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
I've seen some people, you can see like the biggest burliest guy with all these tattoos and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, that guy looks so scary. But then and he likes horror movies. Oh my god, he's got to be evil. And then you talk to him, and he's like just this teddy bear of a person, And
Yeah,
it's just like yeah. But I have found this out in the course of just being a horror filmmaker and a horror fan for my life, is that you never know who likes horror, ever.
Yeah, it's not like you don't see it written on a face or in somebody's hairstyle or something like that. It's people from all walks of life. Fall into the horror fandom.
Well, it's interesting because there are those that are the hardcore fans that like will have tattoos and will they do have tattoos and will have like the shirts with like logos and stuff on it or movies, but but for the most part, yeah, I mean, there's just some random person you might be next to, you would never think this might be dressed up in a suit, and they're like, oh yeah, I love horror. And people tell me all the time, and like, wow, I would have mistaken you for somebody who likes horror. And that's what I like about the genre. Then it's like we have this mutual thing, and then we're talking about it. We just look like, I guess, quote unquote normal people, but really it's just we're talking about
a
horror movie. And they're like, oh, what's your favorite horror movie? And then we start swapping stories, and that's always sort of a fun thing. So
and you used to be able to connect with people if you see them reading a Stephen King novel. Because you'd see the novel. People read on tablets now, and you don't really see that connection in real life. So I'm thankful for social media connecting so many horror fans together.
Yep, exactly. Or it's kind of cool when they make a sort of horror reference. Like I was talking to Jeffrey on a previous podcast, and he's like, it's always funny when I'm out and about and around people, and people say something and go, oh, that's such a Final Destination moment. And he's like, oh, it's like when it's always referencing something cool like that. So I like that, those kind of moments. So what's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite horror movie. I have several, but the one I have repeatedly cycled back to over the years is the 1985 Fright Night.
Nice. Yeah, baby.
And yes, it's not only my favorite horror movie, it's my favorite vampire movie of all time, and that includes all of the incarnations of Dracula and Hammer and everything. That for some reason, when I was a teenager, that movie really connected for me, and I didn't get to see it in the theater because I was too young to get into an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
But I saw it on cable when it hit cable, and I fell in love with it. I recorded it to a VHS tape, and I watched that thing over and over and over.
I remember those days.
I could not get enough of it. Yes. And people would come over to my house, and I would say, you have to see this movie, So it's always going to be Fright Night for me.
Oh, I like that answer. Did you like the remake that came out a few years with Colin Farrell? Colin Farrell, right? Yeah.
I'll tell you, yeah, and I'll tell you, I made the mistake of having an anti-remake prejudice at the time that I sat down and watched that movie the first time. I was one of those people who is simply against remakes for remakes' sake.
Yeah.
And so I watched it, and because of my nostalgia for the 1985 movie, I was determined that I hated it. I didn't like what they did with the Peter Vincent character, making him this illusionist instead of, a washed up actor. And then I sat down with a couple of other people a few years later and watched it again, and decided that I was going to divorce it from my love for the 85 version in my mind. And once I did that, I really, really enjoyed it. And I I don't love it like I love the original, and I never will. But in its own right, I think it's a good movie.
Oh, I mean, I'm the same way when it comes to remakes. I'm not a big remake fan, but sometimes it's hit or miss, and I think that one was a good one. I
Yeah,
wasn't a fan of
yeah,
the
I
Nightmare.
agree.
Yeah, so some remakes is whatever, but yeah, the original one's always like the best one because that's what made you fall in love with the series. But um, that one's definitely a good one.
I
Someone's
actually even I right. I wrote a column for Tennessee Horror News a couple of years ago that was titled "How to Enjoy a Horror Movie Remake," and it was about that entire experience of, well, first of all, is it actually a remake or is it an adaptation from the same source material? You have to think about that and try
yeah.
to divorce your mind from someone daring to remake this beloved film from your past and watch it on its own merits. And
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it's still a bad film, it's still a bad film. But if it's not, enjoy it.
yeah. It's just I know that it's always interesting because I know they're trying to bring it to like a new audience and a younger audience, but I'm always like, why can't they just like the original? You know, but they do
Right.
the same thing with songs and
And there
stuff.
is,
So
yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's a wealth of fresh original source material out there as well. So there is a certain amount of cynicism that goes into choosing to remake an existing popular um, film or adaptation, because you they're making the assumption that there's uh, definite money there because of the name, of whatever it is they're remaking, and the built-in audience for it. So I think there's an unwillingness on the part of mainstream filmmakers anyway to actually look for original source material that can make an excellent movie.
yeah. Oh, I agree. That's awesome. Well, man, I wish you luck on your second book, man. I mean, again, it's a huge undertaking, but you've already proven that you can do it. So now no pressure, but you
I
gotta
appreciate that.
always gotta do better. I'm the same way. When I finish a project, I'm like, great, I did it. Now I gotta do it again, and I gotta do it better. I gotta learn from the first one.
Right.
But I mean, if
Exactly. You have to take those lessons.
yeah, but we want to grow as artists. That's what we want.
Absolutely.
So where can we find the
And
book? It's on.
I'm trying to hurry up and take my time.
Yeah, yeah. Life is precious. We're finding out. So your book is on Amazon only, right?
You're it is actually on most retail outlets. So you can get it on Amazon, you can get it at Barnes and Noble.
Oh, nice.
You can order it through Books A Million, or you can go to indiebound.org or bookshop.org and order it from your local independent bookseller, which would be an awesome thing to do for your local economy right now.
Yes. Please help local businesses. And then where can we find you on the socials for when you're actually using it rather than when you're not writing? Just,
Right. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Isaac R. Thorne, and that is Thorne with an E. And
yes.
my website, which is isaacthorne.com.
And you're very active on social media, mostly Twitter. You have a good Twitter. You're very active on Twitter, I've noticed. So that's a good place to get a hold of you. So you guys get his book, read it, message him on Twitter, and tell him what you think about it. Support local artists. And you can get his ebook. It's easy to download. I bought it. It was there right 5 seconds later. So anyways, my friend, it was a pleasure to talk to you. The show's almost over. It goes really fast.
Yeah, it did go. It did go really fast.
I know you listen to every
once again,
episode.
I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, dude, my
I
pleasure.
do, yeah.
Like I tell you, I said every show it goes fast, but it does. I look down, I'm like, wow, the show's already over. I try to keep it about 30 minutes, so we just want to get the good nuggets of who you are, just enough to get people to go out and want to read your work and support you.
And I appreciate it. I hope I was able to keep the half hour interesting.
No, you're very entertaining. This is the first time you and I've ever talked, because we usually talk via social media.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't even know what your voice sounds like. You knew mine because you listened to the show. So this was the first, everybody. This is the first time I heard your voice. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And we do have to apologize. You would have video. You would have video, but you said where you are, you don't have the best internet service.
Unfortunately, I am stuck with sucky internet, and the video upstream on that. If I enabled video, you would see a bunch of colorful squares more than anything. So I just don't even bother.
Well, that's okay. This is a podcast first before you can, but I do put the I try to put the video online. So like it'll jump up back and forth between me video and you as a picture. It's fine. It's no big deal. The important thing is people just need to listen to it and find out who Isaac is and go check out the Gordon place. So we'll put that in the show notes. We'll put that in the show notes. And then as you progress on your second novel or any more short stories, please let us know and we'll let the audience know.
I will. Absolutely.
Awesome, Isaac. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. You guys, you can check Mimosas with Michael on Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's available on Apple Podcast. Pretty much, wherever you can get a podcast, it's there. We're also on YouTube and Instagram TV. So just research Mimosas with Michael. Again, thank you to my guest, Isaac Thorne with an E, and check out The Gordon Place, now available on Amazon and small retail booksellers. Awesome.